President Trump has referred to you as nasty, a sort of madwoman, a disaster, the meanest, most horrible, most disrespectful of anybody in the U.S. Senate.
Yeah.
How do you define what you hear from the president?
Listen, I think that
it's true that I was into Bernie before it was cool.
The internal chatter among the kingmakers in the Democratic Party is that Pete Buttigieg should run for president, possibly in 2024 instead of the so-called unelectable vice president, Kamala Harris. Now, this is allegedly referred to as the nuclear option since Harris was supposed to be the top pick to run as Joe Biden's successor. Now, polls, though, are now regularly showing Biden's approval rating below 40%, and panic set in at the White House after a recent poll put Kamala Harris at an unelectable 28%. So you have all these Democratic officials, maybe even some White House staffers scrambling to figure out what to do in response to this. Because as we know, Joe Biden may have said that he plans on running for re-election, but he's, in my opinion, barely hanging in there. Like he's going to global conferences, falling asleep, can barely keep it together. So I don't think that it's too far-fetched to think that maybe Biden would step aside and have someone else run in his place. Now, Democrats desperately scrambling to find a potential successor to Joe Biden in 2024 are whispering about a potential nuclear option that could see Kamala Harris, the current vice president, nominated to the Supreme Court. Biden could then use Section 2 of the 25th Amendment to nominate a more popular vice president. That person would be the presumptive Democratic nominee should Biden not run for re-election at the age of 82. Now, the Clinton appointee, Justice Stephen Breyer, is 83. There's a lot of pressure for him to retire. And if he would retire under this supposed plan, Kamala Harris could be nominated to the Supreme Court. But the real question is, who would take Kamala Harris's place in running for president? And I've been seeing a lot of headlines about Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, who, in my opinion, is also a disaster. So apparently the 39-year-old transport secretary has boosted his public profile by doing absolutely nothing. Let's be clear about that. But according to Telegraph, he's boosted his profile by positioning himself as a key implementer of Mr. Biden's signature infrastructure legislation. Yeah, he's the transportation secretary. That's what the transportation secretary would be responsible for carrying out bipartisan infrastructure legislation that was passed by Congress. Like, why are we, first of all, why are we giving him props before he's done a damn thing? He hasn't done a damn thing, nothing. But like, Buttigieg has done nothing. Congress passed a corporate handout bill, and he will now be in charge of implementing the corporate handout bill. But the way that he's being reported about in the press is like, oh, he's really boosted his profile by doing absolutely nothing. But we're gonna pretend like he's done a lot because Democrats are desperate and Kamala Harris is very unpopular. It's amazing, Cenk.
Yeah, so the donor primary started early this time around because the donors actually pick the Democratic candidate the overwhelming majority of the time. So when you see all these stories, it's usually donors that are leaking and starting this soap opera among the Democrats. And it was the donors who picked Kamala Harris to be VP in the first place. And then when they put Buttigieg as transportation secretary, I knew at that moment that they were always planning to pass some corporate version of the infrastructure bill, because Buttigieg is their rising star for the donors. They love him. But by the way, they previously loved Kamala Harris. They're not frustrated about her politics or her policy at all. The only thing they're frustrated at is, in their view, her incompetence and her inability to execute the corporate strategies that they want. Understand, this is amazing. Politico doesn't note it. None of the mainstream media articles note it. But there's absolutely no difference between Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg on policy. Zero, none. So this conversation is all about who do we think is the better face for marketing the corporate agenda. Well, it could be Kamala Harris. She's, it's perfect for identity politics. She's black, she's a woman, she's even Asian. My God, this is a donor's dream. And she'll do anything we tell her to do. On the other hand, Buttigieg, rising star, worked at corporate America already. It will do anything for donors, maybe even more than Kamala Harris, and he's gay, and we'll put him on infrastructure. We know we're gonna pass the infrastructure bill and almost nothing else. That'll prime him, and then if we need him and Kamala's having issues or Biden's having issues, we'll call him out of the bullpen. Well, they're going to the bullpen in like the third inning. That's what this story's about. And there's no real voters that are like, oh my God, maybe it should be Buttigieg in 24. None of these quotes are about voters at all, or about policy at all. This is just a popularity contest among the donors in Washington.
And look, a popularity contest is a part of politics, right? But it shouldn't be the only part in deciding which candidate should go out there and represent the Democratic Party, run for president. Look, I don't know how this all plays out, but I think that your analysis here is correct. I think that the donors are panicking and they see the low approval rating for both Biden and Kamala Harris, and they're trying to figure out what to do. Buttigieg has always been a corporate darling, a corporate favorite. Politico reports that someone who has direct knowledge of these conversations said no one in the West Wing shut that down. Okay, it's very open, so it seems like this is something that the White House is privy to, and they're strategizing in regard to Biden's successor. And then there's some activity taking place with Buttigieg's PAC. So the Political Action Committee he formed in the aftermath of his presidential race, Win the Era, is mostly keeping quiet, but the website remains up and has been organizing occasional events. Let me decode that for you. Fundraising events, including one on November 15th. Former campaign aides Maxwell Nunez and Michael Halley have been helping keep it afloat, according to filings and disbursement reports. Neither of them responded to messages when they were reached out by Politico. And so, I just want everyone to envision what 2024 is gonna look like. If this actually goes the way that it's being reported in CNN, Politico, all these different outlets. If Donald Trump runs in 2024, imagine him just eating Buttigieg for dinner. Like not even dinner, a little snack, a little nighttime snacky. But what is Buttigieg? What has Buttigieg done in his career other than serve as a failed mayor of a small town in Indiana? Then he gets appointed to transportation secretary. He hasn't done a damn thing yet, but he's gonna implement the policy that was just passed by Congress. Okay, but that's like literally his job. What other experience does he have? And what proof do we have that he's even someone who is appealing to Democratic voters and someone who actually would be strategic enough to beat someone like Donald Trump? I mean, the Democratic Party is a failed party and they continue failing. They don't know what to do because they would rather risk everything with a corporatist candidate than to actually maybe have a discussion, maybe take a look at what their voters, what their base actually wants, and maybe promote a candidate that would fulfill those needs. But they wouldn't want to do that because their corporate donors won't let them.